This is a world completely swarmed by the undead. A single bite can infect you and make you one of them. This is Edward, and this is his story. Without tools or resources, I had no memory of the past. I didn't know where I was, but I knew one thing. They were coming. First thing I needed to do was build a shelter to protect me from not only the undead, but any other danger. I wasn't good at it, but every single tree that I cut down was one step closer towards improvement. And this drained me. I needed to eat, fuel my body. I foraged the bushes for some berries. Not the best, but it would do for now. Sun was going down. Grabbed everything I collected and started constructing my base. A safe house. I had no skill at all in construction, botching again and again until no energy was left in me. Just like that, the first day was gone. I lay down on the floor. Hypothermia, cold. Used some of the wood to build a campfire. But it wasn't enough. My body temperature was getting worse. I needed to put up the walls quickly. I tried to do it, but my body collapsed. I wasn't sure if I was awake or dreaming, but I kept working, tile by tile. I needed to expand and keep practicing, honing my skills. I was gathering experience, wisdom, slowly getting better. I set up a crafting spot to begin working on some weapons. The goal was to craft a bow, but I had no idea how to do that yet. I was defenseless. I had no knowledge to be able to craft traps either. So I decided to hone my construction skills by building my first pieces of furniture. And just like that, one day was left until the undead's arrival. I planted some rice and also some cotton for making clothes in the future. If I wanted to keep breathing in the long run, I'd need a sustainable source of food. I had to think ahead. Bedroom was starting to take shape. Some light, a chair, table, bed, even a wooden floor. Until the plants finished growing, I relied on foraging. I kept working until the sun went down. And suddenly, a couple of locals appeared. They didn't say a word. They just watched, intrigued. And just like that left. I needed to rest, for this would be the last night before the infected made their way to me. The thing is, the undead weren't the only danger, not by a long shot, and I was going to learn that soon. You'd think this was a joke, but you shouldn't underestimate your enemies, no matter how small they look. Beaten and scratched, I looked for medicinal plants nearby to heal my wounds. It wasn't good, but it was better than nothing. I rested. As soon as I felt better, I continued working on my construction skills. I needed to build traps as soon as possible to defend my home, but then again, just in time, I got the required skill level to try and build a wooden spike trap. Once I finished setting it up, I sensed something was wrong. I needed a weapon. I didn't have any wood left. I started ripping my furniture apart when suddenly, the trap wasn't enough. I needed a weapon. Time was running out. The wall. My right shoulder and leg were bleeding, but for the time being, I was alive. I barely was able to bandage my wounds before collapsing to the ground, and this was just the beginning. I could hear the screams from a mile away. I couldn't take any chances. My shoulder. The stab wound got infected. If the zombie virus wouldn't get me, then maybe this would. I repaired the walls and furniture, but my body was failing me. The infection was getting worse. I could only rest. Maybe this was it. Killed by bacteria. Just a stab wound. My life was about to end. The infection was at its worst. I couldn't walk. I thought I was going to die. Until out of nowhere, I felt something inside me. A second chance. Something happened. I wasn't done yet. From that point, I slowly started feeling better. Got food, got wood, and put up the spike trap again. They were getting closer. I could see them. There was no time to waste. I had to make more traps and work on my crafting skills. I needed to get that bow. A ranged weapon was key in fighting them. I couldn't risk getting a zombie infection. I gathered resources and started crafting, one club after the other. I was getting better, but still wasn't enough. I thought it was a nightmare, but it wasn't. It worked. The trap worked. I needed to make more. I couldn't believe it. The design was a success. The mindless beasts just chased me, blindly. I just had to lure them to their demise. One after the other, they went down. Once the perimeter was clear, I kept chopping those trees. Thing is, those traps were expensive. I was running out of wood. I couldn't waste time. I needed more space for storage and more traps. I was getting the hang of it, or so I thought. My shelter was getting bigger. My traps were growing in number, but so were they. I had to keep them at bay. I had to make more traps. At this point, my farm was finally ready for harvest. Although I had no way to refrigerate the food, this would do for now. I kept crafting again and again and again until out of nowhere, something fell from the sky. I needed to see what it was. I ran through the grasslands. Chunks from a spaceship. This would be useful. Things were going well. I learned enough to be able to craft my own makeshift bow. I even put up my own training station to practice aiming, and I'm glad I did, because that will be put to the test soon. This victory was different. I wasn't hiding behind walls anymore. I was pushing forward. I built passive coolers to fight the heat stroke. I set up even more traps to stand against the undead. I used the components from the fallen spaceships to construct a wind turbine, and then harvested even more food. Not even nature would stop me. I was growing. I'd go beyond. Soon, I'd begin my research into new grounds, rising up from nothing. More chunks from space. This place was starting to feel like home, somewhat. Things felt under control. I expanded even more, but that was my mistake. When you let your guard down, when you think you're safe, they know. I could hear them. Somehow, they were avoiding some of my traps. There were so many, and as if that wasn't enough, I got food poisoning. I couldn't risk going outside. I had to stay at home until I felt better. Spend some time mining the walls inside the shelter. Until... people. They were fighting them. The perfect distraction. I needed to take advantage. Now was the time. I thought I got bit. I needed to rest. Things were getting worse. They were growing in numbers, quickly, exponentially, and I was falling behind. Needed to keep up. My bow and arrow weren't enough. I could keep them at bay by day, but by night, they'd be knocking on my door. And so, my downfall began. I wasn't growing anymore. I was being chased, escaping, trying to catch up. I couldn't even cut trees without looking over my shoulder. I lost count of how many bodies I left behind, and how many more showed up the day after. It was insane. I needed to upgrade, build a perimeter. I was too vulnerable in this state. They roamed, waiting for me, wandered. I put them down and continued working. The wooden walls wouldn't kill them, but at least I'd have my own space. This was their world after all, not mine. And I wasn't the only one desperate to survive. Some didn't even bother fighting at all. They just took what they could and ran. I felt cornered, trapped. I couldn't keep up. I couldn't get enough wood to repair all the spike traps. I felt like I was getting nowhere. I wasn't living. I was just getting by, one day after the other, working around them, sometimes cutting it really close. They broke in. They were inside. The traps meant nothing to them. I couldn't sleep. By night, they throw themselves at the spikes, one after the other, wading down the rain, desperate for my flesh. But I wouldn't give in. I had to keep going, keep fighting, constructing, growing. I had to exploit the one thing they didn't have, a mind. That was the way to get ahead of them, but it wouldn't be easy. The human body is fragile, and sometimes things happen, but one must go forward. Maybe someday I won't be alone anymore. Maybe someday I will feel safe. But for now, I keep fighting, surviving day by day. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. I'm a total beginner in Rimworld. I hope I didn't trigger you too much. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, maybe consider checking this video where I try to survive the hardest map in Project Zomboid. Hope to see you soon. Goodbye.